Welcome to the Bracket Factory and welcome to the latest thrilling episode, and we're still on the big V12 Speedster project, and we're going to stay on that until the mission of putting the engine in the chassis is accomplished. Now in the last episode I did a lot of cutting, welding, tacking, fettling, making the chassis members to support the engine. Now the goal was to make the 3 large chassis members. Unfortunately I fell at the last hurdle and had a bit of a cock up. I only managed to make 2 out of the 3. But I did promise that I would go away, knuckle down and make the 3rd main chassis member. And that's exactly what I did. So in this episode we're going to review the situation, take stock, stand back and have a look at what's been done so far. Quite a lot of questions have been asked and suggestions made, so I'm going to sort of explain how it's all going to be held together, answer a few questions and generally stand back and take a look at it. Now then we need to take a look at the front cross member. Means rejigging some stuff around in the garage, in the bracket factory, and we might even manage a cheeky startup of the engine. But before we do that, I want to just say a massive thank you to everybody who's bought one of these t-shirts and supported the channel. It makes a massive difference and I really do appreciate it. Please do keep on sending in your selfies with the t-shirt. They're fantastic and I've got a few more to show in upcoming episodes. So without further ado, let's have a look at that chassis. So first up we are reviewing this cross member, which I made first. And there's been quite a few comments about this, suggesting that it might be slightly over-engineered for a gearbox support. Well, it is over-engineered for a gearbox support, but it's obviously not just supporting the gearbox. It supports these main chassis rails, which in turn supports the engine. So in effect, that cross member is taking at least half the weight of the engine in the form of this joint here and this joint over there. So that's the first thing about it. Secondly, I decided to not have a cutout, certainly when I made it. But I may change this and I may basically cut there, make this bit removable, because it will make putting the engine and gearbox in and out a lot easier. Because at the moment I'm having to sort of tilt the whole thing down, stick it in and then lower it, which is we'll have a reminder of quite how big the engine is in a little while, but it makes it a bit trickier, so I might still do that. There will be some holes in there, not so much to make it lighter, but more to tie together both sides of this thing. Otherwise, you know, under the forces it might want to buckle from side to side. Obviously this flange in here will hold it together, but I think maybe another hole about there with basically a tube through welded on both sides. This chassis member here, the way that's going to attach to this is that I'm going to weld a flange or an end plate effectively onto the end of there, and that's going to have holes in it, and then there's going to be bolts coming through from this one through sleeve tubes that's going to basically clamp that and that all together and tie it completely solidly. You can see down inside here that these ends are open, and that's because there's going to be a bolt down through there and through the side to tie this all together. Now what I might do is that when I'm happy everything is right, I might actually end up riveting them. It's obviously very permanent to rivet it, but that is sort of the sort of period look that I might go for. At the moment this aperture doesn't have like an inner flange, but it will do, and what I'm also going to do is take this out to make it a bit wider, to give a bit more room for manoeuvre. You can see there's a centre line just there, and at the moment this is not quite positioned on the centre line, and when I do move it across this will actually get a little bit too close for comfort, so I can easily take that out. It's just elbow grease. So now for the main chassis rails. So at the front they are just supported on here, and they're going to be bolted through and possibly ultimately riveted. And at the back I've got this sort of temporary flange here, But what I will have is a much bigger, beefier flange that goes on the top, which is welded to the side of here as well, which effectively forms a hook, a very strong one. And it means that we're not just relying on some bolts in shear to actually hold this together. At the moment, it's all sitting in there, and there are actually no bolts anywhere. It's just slotted together. So I want to avoid having bolts in shear, which are sort of critical components. This cutout for the gearbox, which I'm quite pleased with, is too small, and quite a few people have mentioned this. I'm just making a rod for my back by having it so tight. I'm not expecting a great deal of vibration because this is going to be mounted firmly, but just getting everything in is quite difficult, so I might make that possibly twice as big. So you can see that these side rails are actually pretty deep, in fact slightly deeper than the side rails are here, but of course you can't help noticing a big notch. And now, you know, if you've done any plumbing, you can't just put a notch in something and expect it to be as strong. So obviously the weak point in this chassis rail is this notch area. So to compensate for that, it's going to have an extra skin on the inside. So I've doubled the skin thickness at the weakest point. And also what I'm going to do is pick up this mounting here is going to have a bracket which ties into the inside of here, and it's going to be welded on. So effectively these two will be tied together, so the engine's weight will be on not only on this but also on this. You might also be wondering where the brakes are going to go. Now, if you saw a few episodes ago, I removed all the brake mechanism, and it was pretty much underneath where the gear shift is. In fact, this is the chassis member that I cut out, and it went there. And on the back of this was the sort of lever assembly. And what I might do is I might reinstate it in this gap. Obviously it means creating well, basically the equivalent to that, but chopped off to there, and that will sit back down inside there and reconnect all the brakes. It also means that I'm going to have holes in this rear cross member, but that's not a problem at all. Plenty of material to go for, and you've obviously got this old hole here which was used to connect all the linkage. There is another consideration that I need to make, and that is answering the question, how can I take the gearbox out without removing the engine? Now, as it stands, you can't, because you have to slide the gearbox off the shaft, so it can't go backwards. So that means you would potentially have to either take them both out or move the engine forwards, which you could potentially do. You could basically disconnect the engine, jack the engine up, and roll the chassis backwards underneath it if you really wanted to, and these could rest on there. But the other thing to bear in mind is that the steering column is going to be mounted there. So as it stands, there is no easy option for that, and this engine is absolutely massive. Again, there's going to be a quick reminder of that in a minute, but right now there is no solution to getting the gearbox out short of lifting them both up, or lifting it up, sliding it back after removing the steering column. So this is what's currently going on at the front. Nothing. There's a big hole at the front, which is a good thing. In fact, the engine is so far back now that this engine mount is approximately equal distance between the front axle and the back axle. So you've got the centre of gravity was probably about a third of the way along. So centre of gravity is still forward of the midline, or midway, but not much. So that's quite good in terms of getting a lot more sprung weight on the rear and a bit less weight on the front. But anyway, back to this big hole. Obviously what we've got to do is make engine mounts which support this. We do have a bit of a challenge because we don't have much space down the side of here now. So it's, I mean, there's enough space, but it's going to have to be pretty substantial. Haven't entirely designed it yet, but what we're going to have to do is pull this engine out so that we can actually get at the front of here and mock up something in situ to make sure it absolutely is right before we try and lower it in. So I think what we need to do now is whip everything out, have a bit of a swap round, get that engine out and see if we can take a look at those front engine mounts. And now for the big lump. So the big old girl is now outside in the light of day, and perhaps you can see why I'm making everything so strong. It is massive. You can see the height of this is almost the same height as that, pretty much the same height. So the height of this engine as it stands is pretty much the same height as it will be in the car. So currently the top of the carb is up to halfway up my chest, so it's quite big. In actual fact, we've got it currently, yeah, it's pretty much lined up, so you can see where the front of the engine will be, and this rad, which is miles in front, is currently on the front line of the front axle, so quite reassuring. Anyway, what we need to do now is turn this round, so I might need to get the help of my trusty test pilot to give me a hand with this, because we've got I'm going to struggle to do a 3-point turn in the drive. I've got to turn it round and pull it backwards in the other way, so this is at the correct end to play with. Right, we're in. I mean, I do need a bigger workshop, as you can see, but we're in, and the correct end of the engine is on show. Now, fortunately, this radiator subframe is removable, and the front engine mounts are removable. So what I'm going to do is remove them, drain down the rad, jack up the underside and chock it up underneath here, which is had before, remove the front engine mounts, and then it's free for me to do a bit of prototyping, get the cardboard out, the IKEA boxes out, and do some prototyping. But first, we're going to have to start it up, aren't we, really? I mean, you can't drain it out without starting it up, so it won't be for long, otherwise I'm going to kill myself with the carbon monoxide, but I think it's time to start it up. Right, I'm going to do a cheeky startup because I need to drain the front, I need to drain it all down. So let's start it up before I do that, just to make sure it works and just to remind us what kind of noise it's going to make. I'm going to need these, it's a clue. So I've got two 12-volt batteries connected in parallel, so it's still 12 volts. Fuel pump, so fuel pump's on. This is my secret weapon, of course. This is full of petrol, so ignition on, screw that down. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. do. Switch it all off. I need to run away. So as you can see, the big old girl works, and also probably what you can see is why I am making that chassis so strong, because she is a monster. Anyway, started up. So now what we can do is turn our attention to this front end area, take the rad, drain it down, take the rad off. I might actually take this off as well, because that is actually like a drive coupling for the fire engine pump, the pump to put fires out with, and then we can whip these off and reveal the front end and work out how we're going to make that engine mount. Right, let's get stuck in, shall we, and drain down this water. I've a funny feeling it's going to go everywhere. It's very dirty. Very dirty. And the bucket is filling. Right, that's that drained off. That's pretty grim, isn't it? It obviously needed that flushing. It's obviously done it power good. Right, this whole assembly should be possible to take it all away. Got to disconnect that. That's freed up, that's good. Whip that one off, I think. Oh, hold on. Nearly fell for that. That's that off, that's good. Right, it should now be possible to disconnect this entire front subframe with the radiator on it. Because it's just two bolts. Got to disconnect the wires. That's obviously for the radiator. Fan. Right, that side's down. Some getting out, isn't it? And that side is down. So this whole lot, when pulled off here, should slide out. It's quite good, isn't it? Right, so front of engine now exposed, and this sort of small flywheel here, it's actually got a rubber drive in there, and I think this was the drive to the water pump on the fire engine. So I think I'm gonna whip this off. I might have to give it a hit. Sure I will. Not sure if it's moving or not. Doesn't want to play, does it? Oh wait, I think it might be moving slightly. Talk amongst yourselves. Making a different noise now. Come on! I think it's got some kind of dowel. Yes, two dowels. That might explain why it's tricky. But don't need that, and it's a good, ooh, what's that? Probably 4 or 5 kilos. Get rid of that. Right, now we need to get these two out. So what we're going to do is jack up the front of the engine and slide a bit of wood underneath the sump so that the engine is resting on the sump at this end. So here goes, and up it goes. I can slide that in there like that, and you can see that that's off the ground and that's off the ground. So if I now whip, that should just come out. Like that. Let's go around the other side. Slides out. almost like a plant, this, isn't it? Almost. Right, this is a slightly weird one because this has got a long sort of pin that comes down there, look. Hopefully we should now be able to lower it down onto the... Oh, there it goes. Now resting on the sump, and we have exposed the front of our engine. Right, front of engine now exposed, and it's just as well we have done this because I've already spotted something that would have probably caught me out, and that is that the height of these two engine mounts is actually different. And I should have realised that because when I made these, the heights were different. So I need to take that into account. I think they're probably level if you remove this rubber bush from the equation. So if you remember a couple of episodes ago, I made this cardboard front cross member, and a few people said, well, that's rather over-engineered, and you're probably right. So if we offer this up, we can see already that the height difference is an issue that needs to be factored in. And also on here, we've got the side of this alternator drive. Actually, the alternator drive is the back of the distributor, so that has to stay. We obviously have to compensate for that as well somehow. And obviously it needs to go underneath this pulley, which it doesn't quite. So all we need to do now is make a front cross member, fabricate a front cross member which fits onto here and also fits into the chassis. And it really is as simple as that. But if you want to see me make that front cross member, I'm afraid to say you're going to have to tune in next time. So if you want to make sure you get to hear about that, please do hit subscribe. If you've liked what you've seen, please do hit like, it helps with all the algorithms. Please do leave a comment. I always reply to every comment and I'm really interested to hear what you say. But I think for now, that's about it. So thanks for watching.